In this video, we're going to look at an application of JavaScript, and we'll do it in the menu section. So this is kind of where we'll show how maybe you would want to incorporate it somehow. So we're going to have a button on the right-hand side here that basically lets you edit the prices of each item. So we're going to add basically another column here. Let's go about that. Close out the tutorials. Let's go to menu. I need another header column. I'm just going to leave it blank. You could add a description. And then each of these, I'm going to add a button. All right, change price. Unfortunately, I have to copy and paste this to each of them. That's why it helps to plan ahead, so you don't have to do this each time. Okay, let's save that. Let's see how it's looking. Okay, and now we have this change price button here. That's not actually doing anything. So let's see if we can make it work. You technically have all the tools you need to figure out how to do this. You could try it if you want to. See if you could create a JavaScript function to change the price of each of these items. We'll look at kind of a fast way to do this and a harder way to do it. Let's get started. Let's see if we can change the coffee's price. We do need a JavaScript file. I'm going to call this menu.js. Remember that when we do our JS files, we do it right before the end of the body. Script, nothing inside the tag there. Source, menu.js. Now I want to change the coffee's price, which means I need access to this thing. I need its ID. I'm just going to call it coffee. Actually, I'm going to call it item 1. I'll explain why later on. Actually, coffee should be fine. Let's do coffee for now. Okay, so how do we change the coffee's price? Let's make a function. I'm going to call it change price. First, we need to get the coffee item. So I need access to this section of my HTML code. We've seen this before. We make a variable for it. I'll call it coffee, or I make it a little bit generic for now. I'm going to call it item equals. We're going to access the document .get element by ID, and our ID is coffee. So this is going to find the coffee's ID. We are going to ask the user for a price. We're going to write alert. What is the new price? And then we are going to set that item's price to what the user enters. Item is this thing, the cell with coffee in it. Oops, I actually made a mistake, didn't I? We're looking for the price, not the text of the coffee. So this ID should actually be in here. My mistake. You could do this, call it coffee price. Maybe that's more descriptive. That's probably why I was confusing myself. So let's change the ID to coffee price, also here in the JavaScript. So item right now is the item's price, and then we'll do .inner HTML equals the price. Maybe I should call this item price to be more specific. And I'll call this one new price. So we are going to get the item price, that is what is in our HTML. We're going to ask the user for a new price, and we're going to set what's inside the item's price cell, this 245, equal to the new price. That by itself is not going to work. We have to call this function, and we're going to do that in this button here. We'll do on click, and then we'll do change price with the parentheses. Let's see if that works. Click refresh. What is the new price? Oops. My mistake here is I did alert. That doesn't ask the user for information. We need to do prompt. we want to actually ask the user. It was undefined because we didn't return anything. Let's try again. Change price for 50. It's not going to do the money sign by default, so you have to add it here. And now I'll say 450. Okay. What about the other ones? We want to change these as well. Let's try that. We'll look at a hard way to do this and an easy way to do this. So we need to add IDs for all of these. The tea and the pastry. I'm just going to change the first word to espresso. Oops. Espresso price, tea price, and pastry price. Now, one way you could go about this is you could duplicate this function. You could copy it and paste it and do call like change price to, and you could, let's say we did the espresso price next. You could copy it here, espresso price, same question, and then on our on click, you could add change price to. Now, if you refresh this and click change price, oops, something didn't go right. I did not save my JS file. Let's save everything again. Okay, what's the new price? Just enter 4s. Okay, now it's updating. But this is a bit tedious. You're going to have to copy and paste this each time. And we're going to have to do this 4 times, each for its unique ID, because we're changing different spots. So we can be a bit smarter here. We can actually, instead of doing multiple functions, we can just do one. And we're going to do an input for that function. There's only one thing that's different for each of the buttons. We basically want to change the ID that we're accessing. Could be coffee price, could be something else. So instead of doing coffee price here, I'm going to make a variable called the current price. So we are going to pass in the current price's ID. So for the first one, that's coffee price. The second one, that's espresso price, etc. So they're going to give us the ID's name. We're going to pass it in here. What's that going to change on our HTML? We now have an input parameter that we need to add. So here we have created this input parameter. We need to put something in every time we call this function. And this is the current price ID. So in our first example, our ID is coffee price. So we're going to pass that in. I'll do single quotations here because there's double quotations on the outside. And a similar thing happens with the espresso price. We're going to call this the same function, change price 1, or just change price, and then replace the ID with espresso price. Now if you save it and we go back to our table, it's still going to work. So if I do whatever here, oops, it didn't go to coffee. Let's check. I made a mistake somewhere. Let's look. I didn't save the JS. Again, that's my mistake. Let's try one more time. Okay. Now espresso changes when you click espresso. And then if you do up here, it will change the coffee price. Okay. So by doing it this way, by adding a input parameter, now we can reuse this function. We don't need to make a new one each time. And instead, we can copy this on click, paste it 2 more times, and change the IDs. Pastry price, tea price, and now all of these will work. If I refresh, click change, $10, now pastry is set. Cool. So now we have basically a working option that's pretty concise that will change these prices. One thing to note, they do not persist upon page loads. If you refresh, it goes away. So right now it is basically just an example to show you how you could use JavaScript to kind of mess around with some of the values in our table.